I'd like to begin today with just a moment in recognition for what we're going to be discussing and in acknowledgement for all the people whose lives have been upended for reasons that we're going to discuss today. So just a moment. So this class begins in 2010 when I did a TED Talk. And the TED Talk was called A Radical Experiment in Empathy. And I wish I could say I was the one that came up with that title, but it wasn't. It was Lori. And in this talk, I walk Americans through the lives of average Iraqi Muslims to give them a sense of what it would be like to go through the wars, the invasion, the sanctions, and all of the things that Iraqis have gone through. And it's a very edgy talk because I talk about why we were in Iraq in the first place, which is largely because of oil, somebody else's resource. It's an edgy talk because I talked about how naturally Iraqis would view this as a Christian invasion, not just an American invasion, because we associate America, the United States, with Christianity. And it's an edgy talk because in the end, the experiment, the radical experiment, is that I had people put themselves in the shoes of the insurgency that's trying to kill American soldiers. And I set it up so that at the end of the talk, people would have the opportunity to imagine what it would be like to be those guys. And are they vicious, violent terrorist killers, or are they patriotic defenders? That's the question that I asked the audience. So the talk went viral pretty quickly in the Middle East. And I got an email from this guy. And he's the first Iraqi who emailed me. And before I started reading, I was a little bit nervous because I thought, I didn't vet this talk with any Iraqis. So I don't really know what Iraqis, I know they're going to think many things, but this was the first Iraqi who reached out to me. And what he said was, I'm not sure how Americans are viewing this talk. But I have to tell you that I'm an average Muslim Iraqi, typical, normal, and I have to tell you that what you said is largely what me and my friends say about this invasion and this war. What my friends and I say. The oil, everything you said, it's on point. And he, as it turns out, had lived 8 years in the United States. He says, so I don't have a problem with the United States. He spoke English very well. And he said, I love Americans. I have American friends. I love the United States. Spent 8 years there. And but what you said is really on point. So he lived, so you see the map. Here's Iraq. Here's Baghdad. And he lived up here in Mosul. And so naturally, there was a lot happening in Mosul at that time. This is 2012 now. And so I said immediately, hey, so we Skyped, we talked to each other and started a correspondence. And I said, could you Skype into my class? I'm teaching this section, I'm teaching Intro to Sociology, a section on war. It'd be really good for my students to talk to you. You could just tell them what life is like on the ground. And he said, okay, I'll be happy to do that. So he Skyped in. Students enjoyed it. It was very interesting. It's fascinating. We were able to show photos, and he was able to explain what was going on and talk about interacting with American troops and what that was about. And then he sent me photos. We established a friendship over the years, and he sent me photos. So this is him with his wife. They're in Michigan. He studied at Western Michigan University. And this is this is a long time ago. You can tell by the clothes. Next slide. There he is at graduation. Just photos. So we established, we're going back and forth. We send lots of things. So I get a sense of his life, here in the U.S. There he is with some American friends. Good friends of his. Right. Next slide. So then, at some point in time, we talk more about families and our families and who we are. And he sends me this photo of his house, beautiful house, and talks about his wife and children, so Mayada and Yaya and Tuka. And there's his brother's house right next door. So they had houses right next door to each other, beautiful houses, lovely families, really just a lovely person. And so we established this bond and this connection and this friendship. And every semester he would Skype into my classes. Then he started Skyping into 119, talking about empathy and talking about Iraq and what Iraqi people are really like and what Muslims are like and how I have a certain, he had a certain way of seeing it because, he had lived here. So he understood what to say and how to talk in ways that people were really understanding. Was fascinating. Just a nice guy. Engineer, average in every way, not a philosopher, doesn't have a PhD in rhetoric and philosophy and this sort of just average engineer. Nice guy. So then, Lori and I were in a hotel in St. Louis on the day of the wedding of a friend of ours, and we get this message on Facebook. I see it on Facebook, and it says, Basim is sad. And I say, Basim is sad? Huh, that's interesting. And then I see some responses, and they have sad faces. And so I start translating it. And then I say, no, that can't be possible. So I translate it again. And I say, no, that's not possible. I try a different translator, and I translate. And here's what it says. In the middle of the night, coalition airplanes targeted 2 houses occupied by innocent civilians. This barbarian attack cost the lives of my wife, my daughter, my brother, and my nephew. May they rest in peace, and may Allah Almighty accept them as martyrs. Is this American technology? Is this American technology? And by martyrs, he meant any Muslim, any innocent Muslim who dies. So I immediately notice that he's online. And I contact him. Lori and I do. We're in a hotel room. We start talking. And this is 3 days later. And I said, tell me this isn't true. And we go back and forth, and we're talking like, oh my God, I'm in shock. Lori's in shock. He's in shock. And so we're communicating. Like, how is it possible? This person who is the friend of Social 119, the friend of Penn State, how is that possible? And so he started sending me photos. So here's his house, the beautiful house. Then this one, this is his brother's house. And then he sent this photo, and this is the text that he wrote next to this photo. The night before she was killed. So you can imagine what do you say? What do you say? And then this one. Isn't that? They even killed my dog. It's like he's in shock, right? So these are the photos. Mohanad is his brother, Mayada his wife, Tuka and Najib, they're cousins, live right next door to each other, grew up together. My friend's family. In a war that I've been living and struggling with and talking about, the war comes home, and it comes home right to Social 119. It comes home to all of us. So, for a year, he didn't visit class. And then I finally called him one day, and I said, listen, you need to come into class. He said, I can't. I said, no, you have to. He said, I can't. I'll cry. I said, it's okay, you can cry. We can handle your tears. He said, I know, but it's really hard. You got to understand. I said, no, listen, my friend, Basim, trust me. Come into class. Let's tell your story. My students need to hear your story. So he came in, and it was profound because his message was profound. And then last semester, we sat right here with the camera right here, and Basim on the screen. He talked to students about forgiveness, about not hating, about justice, about war, about violence, about so many things. And they asked questions. Lots of questions. And so, with a complex, they also said, let's bring him here. Can he come to Penn State? And so, with a very complex range of emotions, of joy and friendship, and deep sadness and deep grief, and I wish I wasn't doing what I'm about to do, because it would mean none of this ever happened. I want to introduce you to my friend, Basim. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
Hello. I'm Basim. I come from Iraq. I'm an Arab. I'm a Muslim. I'm a friend of everybody. I'm so happy to be here among you guys. I have Skyped into this class many, many times, but now I'm in person, live in front of you. I'm so happy to be here.
Listen, before we do anything, I have to get a selfie with you, okay? All right, so here we go. There we are. Cool. So listen, Basim, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Basim watches the live stream a lot, and when we were coming down around the back, he said, I always wonder what's in
I always want to know what's behind this door. I expected something much bigger than this.
That's all he wants to know. What's behind the door,
Yeah, there's nothing behind this door.
And now the mystery has been broken, and so, Yeah. So listen, tell us about your life in Iraq before the war, before all of this happened, what's your life?
Well, I returned from the United States in 1988. I was drafted into the Army Corps of Engineers in July of 1988. And then I was serving in the Corps of Engineers for 2.5 years. During the invasion of Iraq, of Kuwait, I was in the Army. And then I was released 2.5 years later. My father was a pharmacist. He had 2 pharmacies. So he said, why don't you come work with me? So I'm an engineer. So I thought, well, I went to engineering college for 4 years. I want to be an engineer. So he said, well, okay, do what you want to do. But at the end, my other pharmacy is open for you if you want to run it. I said, okay, no, I want to be an engineer. So I met with an old engineer there, and then we decided to make a small shop of purifying water and adding it to sulfuric acid, so you can add it to your battery immediately. We worked on the project for like 6 months. It was a failure. So I shut down. And then one day I was sitting, and my father, he comes in, he was driving. He stood in front of the small shop. He said, is this what I sent you to the United States to do, sitting in a small shop? I could not answer. I said, well, he got me because it was a failure for 8 months. So he said, come work with me. I have my other pharmacy. You can run it. So that's how I got into the pharmacy. I was running the pharmacy, the financial aspect of it only, just like a business. And then in 2011, I was introduced to a Chinese company. It's called Huawei. This Chinese company is for telecommunication. They have all the Iraqi telecommunication business. It's theirs. So they introduced me to them. They were looking for a local account manager. So I was hired like 2 months later, and I became the account manager for Huawei for Mosul. 3 years later, I was promoted. They gave me another region, Kirkuk. Or now the map is gone. It's further to the east of Mosul. I became account manager for Mosul and Kirkuk. And then a year later, they gave me another region. This was until 2014. That's when ISIS came in. And everything was destroyed. I lost my job because Huawei pulled out of Iraq. No Chinese company would work with ISIS. So I lost my job. ISIS started meddling in everything. So the whole thing in Mosul changed in 2014 when ISIS entered Mosul.
Tell us about your wife.
Mayada. She was born 1964. You saw her pictures. This was in 1985. That's when we moved to Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. That's when I went to Western.
So she lived in the United States also?
Yeah, I came to the United States in 1981, and then she followed me in 1982, and we lived in Ann Arbor for 2 years. And then we moved to Kalamazoo, Michigan. She was a loving person. She was a great cook. I talked to you about her cooking yesterday.
Tell me your best.
Yeah, she learned to cook Chinese, burritos, lasagnas, pizzas. She cooked everything. She was a great cook. And then one day she came to me. She said, "Listen, Basim, I want to be an Avon lady." I said, "What's the Avon lady?" Well, she said, "Well, Avon is a cosmetic company. I will be a representative for them. I can go." We lived in an apartment complex just the block. She said, "I will just go around the block," because she did not drive. I said, "Well, whatever you do, I'm not driving you." She said, "No, I'll be close." So she started this Avon lady, and every Saturday we'll have a DHL pickup comes into the house, and they will have small boxes. And then things moved. And then she said, "Listen, you can drop me at 5 p.m., pick me up at 9. So her area of sales increased. At the end, she was making like $2,000 of sales a week. She became very good in Avon. And the first thing she bought me, I was into photography. She bought me my first SLR camera. And then we came back home. She did not want to go back. She really did not want to go back. But my parents, you know the culture, my family, they said, "No, you have to come back." So we went back to Iraq. When we went back to Iraq, we lived in my parents' family until we built our house. We stayed for about 7 or 8 years in my parents' family. That's when we moved to our house. She was a very loving person.
And Toka, tell us about your daughter.
Toka, she was very lively. Sometimes she was diagnosed with ADHD. She was very lively. She was just moving around. And she needed special care when she got into school. So she was my favorite. I mean, I had Yahya. We got married in 82, but we decided that we would not get kids because we were still young. So we decided to put it off until I graduate. But then Yahya, my eldest son, he was born in 1990. I was so happy to have him, my firstborn. So happy. But when Tuqa came, it was different because we have decided that we only wanted 2 kids. So it was perfect, a boy and a girl. So Tuqa was born 1994. So she's 4 years younger than Yahya. She was very lively. She would always take my side against her mother. Typical of girls. And she was just, she was happy. She was happy. She was expecting her son, her brother to get married. She cannot wait to hold his child. Just typical of any girl who looks, she was going into college next year.
So she was...
2015, she would be in college.
So she was 17?
Yeah, she was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Yahya, your son. So he
Yahya
was
born
not
1990.
In the accident, he was not in.
No. When ISIS entered Mosul, I was really afraid for Yahya's safety. So I asked him to leave immediately. So he left like a week after. So he left to Erbil. He stayed in Erbil for 6 months. And because he was, like I told you this morning, because he was a bachelor, he was not allowed to stay in Erbil. So he moved to Baghdad. So he was saved. If he was in Mosul, probably he would have been killed too.
And he's married now.
Yeah, he got married 2 years ago. Actually, they're expecting a baby girl beginning of next month.
So,
I won't be there for the birth.
so how do you say grandfather in Arabic?
Jed.
Jed?
Jed.
Okay, Jet Basim.
Well, this makes me feel old, so don't say it.
Yeah, you are old, my friend.
Well, I'm 58.
Well, hang on. No, I can't say that. Yeah, exactly. I'm 57, so you're old. All right. Hey, okay. So I would like you to do something. I'm hesitant to ask you, but I'm going to ask you if you could. What happened when the missile struck? Can you? And I want to say why I'm asking you this, because there's this sense at which we are always so distant from the violence. Mm-hmm. And just say what you are comfortable saying. Okay.
Well, my usual routine is Mayada, my late wife, should go to bed early, about 10, because she wakes up early. Tuqa will stay with me until 11 and 12. And then I ask her to go to bed. Well, at that time, since ISIS entered Mosul, we stopped sending kids to school because ISIS were playing with their heads, trying to teach them their ideas, so everybody stopped sending kids to school. So she went to bed around 12. I went to bed around 1 or 1:30, so I slept. And then I woke up to a big explosion. You can smell the air. The loud noise is unbearable. And the first few seconds, I thought I was having a nightmare. I really did not know what happened. And then, like a minute or two later, I looked up and I can see stars on top of my head. I felt my back was warm. I reached to my back and I touched my back and I looked. I could not see because it was dark, the electricity gone out, but I felt my hand was warm. It was blood. My back has been injured. I tried to get up, but I fell down. I have not realized what has been wrong with me until they took me to the hospital. So I was laying down. My bed broke into like a V shape like this. So my legs were up, my head was up, but my back was down. So I realized there was something wrong with me because I was having some pain. My left foot was broken, my back, my pelvis. So they came up. We have the groundkeeper, we have it in my farm, so he started shouting at me. And then my sister-in-law in the other house, she was blown out of her bedroom. So she flew from the first floor, which is about 9 feet, and she was thrown out about 10 feet. That was how terrible the explosion was. So I could hear her sound. I said, her name is Azza. I said, Azza, are you okay? How's everybody? She said, everybody's gone. So the guy who works for us, his name is Saad, he said, Ammo Basim, his uncle Basim. He climbed up, he brought a ladder, he came up to me. He said, I said, what happened? He said, we've been bombed. But his house is about 400 to 500 feet away from our house, so they were spared, they were okay. So, and some other neighbors, we live in a farm, big farm, it's about 3 acres. So my neighbors also came up to me, and then they were able to get me down, and they took me to Mosul hospital, which was controlled by ISIS then. So I went into the emergency room, and I was lying there for like half an hour. Nobody came to me. And then suddenly somebody tapped on my shoulder. He said, Uncle Basim, don't worry. I know you, Yahya. I know Yahya. He's my friend, my son. He said, I have to take you to get you some x-rays. So they took x-rays. They put my foot in cast. For my broken hip, they could not do anything. There was nothing in Mosul General Hospital anymore, no facilities, no doctors. Everybody fled Mosul when ISIS came in. So I said, well, if there's nothing you can do for me, I would like to go home because I will see if I feel safer when I'm at home. So they took me home at about 1 p.m.
And when did you know that Mayada was dead?
About 11. Well, I was still at the hospital. Yeah. My brother-in-law came in. I said, tell me what happened. He said, well, Mayada, Tuqa, Muhammad, Najib are dead. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to... I can't. I feel like I'm back when we first talked. Yeah. And I remember when I signed off to you, all I said was, I give you a virtual hug, my friend. Yeah. Let me just give you the real hug.
You're going to make me cry. I don't want to cry in front of them.
No, it's okay. They don't mind. It's okay. No, it's okay. It makes them more human. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening, by the way. What did the Americans say?
Well, remember your friend. She got in contact with the State Department. Mm-hmm. And I was in Turkey for 3 months for my operation. And around November, I got a message on Viber. They say, Mr. Razzo, we are the American Embassy in Baghdad. We would like to talk to you. That's after your friend contacted the state.
So to explain, I was, Lori and I had a former student who worked for us who was had risen up pretty high in the State Department. So I was able to contact her, and she trusted my word to call Baghdad, and they called Basim.
So I was in Turkey until my final checkup on December 26th. That's when the first time I walked. I went to the hospital. So I was walking on walkers for about 2 months. In February, when I was able to move a little bit, I contacted the American Embassy. And I said, well, I'm in Baghdad. I can come in now. They said, okay. They made an appointment for me. They sent me security permission to enter the embassy. So I gathered a report with some of the photos, some background information about us, some aerial photo by Google Earth. I put down the GPS coordinates of the houses, and I went into the embassy. And they met me, and they said, well, what can we do for you? I said, well, just read this. So I sat down for like 15 minutes. They read it. She went to the American consular. He told her, well, the first thing we have to do is we have to do a verification, check that American airplanes did this, not somebody else, because coalition has many countries. So she said, well, we will send it to the DOD for verification. For 2 months, I did not hear anything from them. So I emailed her again, I think around April. She said, we still have not heard anything from the DOD. And then there was nothing. Complete silence. I emailed again, and then I received an email. She said, email box full. I said, come on. How can an email be full for an embassy? It's impossible. And that's when Azmat came in. Mm. Yeah, the reporter who wrote the article, The Uncounted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the New York Times. And they said in the end that, they were going for your house. They meant to blow up your house.
My house was labeled as a bomb manufacturing facility. Both houses. So they were after the houses. So there was no mistake in bombing the houses. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just faulty intelligence.
Faulty intelligence. That's what they admitted later. They said, yes, we have an aerial photography of your premises for an hour and a half, for 15 minutes intervals. And a decision was made that this was an ISIS facility. But later, they posted the video of the bombing of my house on YouTube, but then it was removed. And then when Azmat went to the airbase, the aerial surveillance video has been also removed. Yeah. But they admitted. They said, yes, we bombed, but we made a mistake.
And in the end, they offered you. You're the only person who's received.
I am the only person in Iraq and Syria who was able to reach them, to have a dialogue with them, and to have his case reviewed. They admitted it was a mistake, and then they asked for a meeting with me. They came to Erbil, and they offered me the scholarship payment, which was not. It was their way of saying, we are sorry, we made a mistake.
Yeah. And you rejected the
I
payment.
rejected the money, yes.
The cost for a life is
2,000. Yeah, the cost, the amount of compensation for Iraqi, Syrian, Afghani, anybody in war is $2,000.
So if we accidentally kill somebody,
2,000.
so your wife and your daughter, your brother and your nephew are worth.
No, the payment they made was only for my wife and my daughter. They were very generous with me. They paid me 15,000.
They offered 50.
Yeah, they offered 15, which I rejected.
Yeah. So Basim, I'm thinking back to last semester, in particular, the last 3 semesters. And when you've talked in here, and you've had a conversation, there's one question that when students come down to the front and they sit, this is right where they are, sitting in a chair, looking at a camera right here up at you. The question that they have each time have started out with is,
How you are not angry?
why don't you hate?
Why don't you hate? How can you not hate us Americans? Why don't I hate you? And my answer to them was always, I have lived 8 years in the United States. I have lived as a student for 8 years. I have many, many American friends. Everybody was good to me. Everybody was friendly to me. You have nothing to do with this decision. All of you here have no say in what's happening. It's the higher level who I am upset with. But everybody in this room, you have nothing to do with this. You have no fault in doing. You don't have a choice. I mean, you're a regular person, just like me. So I don't hate you. My friends, they asked me in Iraq how you don't hate them. I said, well, if you have lived among them, they're good people. The general public, they're good people. And I was saying to Sam, I have been here for 2 days. I am amazed with the welcome that I've received here, and everybody's so friendly. Well, this is the way I know Americans. So that's why I don't hate. The second, I said it last time, if you keep hating, it will just eat you inside. You'll be upset all the time. You'll be angry all the time. And if you're angry at something that you cannot change, why be angry about it? If you can be angry about something you can change, then you have to change it. There's nothing I can do about it. It's out of my league.
At what point does your faith come into play? How does that?
Well, in my faith as a Muslim, we believe that the major events that happens in our lives are meant to happen. So this path was laid to us before we were born. This is our faith. So this major accident, this major incident, the loss of the life, I am at peace with myself because it means God put this in my way, maybe to see if I am thankful to Him, because we always have to be thankful to God. I am thankful. I was talking to Lori this morning. For the first 3 months, when I was laying on my back at the hospital, everything that I was dreaming of was standing up and walking. This was the only thing I was thinking of. I did not want to be a cripple. So when I walked, I was thankful for it. So this is my faith. My faith, I'm a Muslim. I don't go to mosque, but I have certain things that I believe in, and I believe in fate and destiny, and I believe what happened to me is my destiny. What my accident brought me here, my accident is making me preach some things. I would like for you to look at me. I'm an Arab, I'm Iraqi, I'm a Muslim. I'm not a terrorist. I don't look at you as terrorists. I want to preach this. I was talking to Lori. I've heard of what is word in conversation. I want to bring Iraqi students. The normal, regular teenager must understand that one day, you and him, you might meet someday. Now, like I said this morning, life is a roller coaster. Maybe the United States is on the top now. Maybe in 7 years it won't be. You have to meet somebody halfway. This is the one idea. The other thing, which I said many, many times before, for you guys, even when I was in the United States, you have no knowledge of the world. I have to say this. If you agree with me, raise your hands. See? I want to change this. I want you guys to look beyond the United States. I know some of my friends, one of my friends, he has never left Michigan. Come on. You have to travel. One of the guys was just asking me, he said, if I want to travel, where would you advise me? So if you're afraid for your safety, I will advise you of, say, Dubai. It's a very safe place. I was there for 4 days. It's a beautiful place. Just get out of your comfort zone. Meet other people. Get to know other people so you will know what they are about.
Awesome.
Read. You don't read enough in your history books. I'm afraid so. You don't read. All you know is America, LA, Florida. Spring break, you go to Fort Lauderdale. That's all you do. Get out of here. Get out.
Basim, Lori has a question for you.
Okay, Lori.
So Basim, a couple things are, you want me to stand? Okay. So a couple things are coming to mind as you're speaking. One is just, I have to say, before I was with you in person and I knew of your talk of forgiveness, I couldn't believe it. I thought it would just be words, but I believe it.
Now you believe it.
I believe it, which
that's what I need to know.
Yeah, I believe you.
So I am succeeding.
Yes.
Yes.
And I also know that we also have responsibilities, and so I appreciate you telling us where you are, and because it's profound, and I'm hoping that we get to ask you some questions about that. But I also want you to say, from where you stand, what is the responsibility of people who aren't responsible for what happened to you, but yet are in this world with you? What's our responsibility?
I'm going to pick you. God forbids you lose a brother, a sister in an accident, and somebody gives you $2,000 for it. How would you feel?
I would say skirt, but so no.
Thank you. Everybody has to be fair. This is what empathy is all about. Empathy made me meet this guy. Empathy brought me here. I believe in empathy. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the other. Before you do anything major, think of the consequences. Think what the other guy will feel if you do this to him. And if you use empathy, I'm sure 90% of the things that you think of doing, you will not do.
But wait, Basim, you have to tell the story that I heard this afternoon. So whenever we all, Basim, we all talk about empathy.
Yeah.
Really, we all know this word really well.
Okay.
But actually, when and this is such a good story, because when it really matters.
Sam hasn't heard. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't know this story.
Yeah.
When it really matters, people say, "Oh my God, you have to protect yourself." Empathy, that's crazy. So tell us. This is way before any of this happened to Basim. Tell us.
This was in 2003, like 2-3 months after the American invasion of Iraq. I was sitting in my garden, me and my wife. My son Yahya was around 13 at that time. And so it was about 4 or 5 p.m. We were sitting out. So he took his bike and he just went outside. And usually he goes all the way to the end of the street and comes back. It's probably 10 minutes ride going back and forth. And he was gone for like half an hour, him and my nephew. So my wife, Mayada, late wife, she said, Basim, where is Yahya? I said, I don't know. She said, come on, it's been half an hour. Where are they? So I was wearing shorts, and I went up and put some pants on, and I walked out. And my house is this way. So I have to walk about 300 feet, and then the road bends. And the minute I went around the bend, there was this American soldier. He just pulled his gun on me. He said, stop. So I started laughing. I said, what's wrong? He said, stop. Get your arms in the air. So I did. He said, get closer to me, slowly, arms in the air. So I moved about another 20 feet, and I looked to the left. There's about 100 people on the floor. I said, what is this? He said, sit down. I was laughing. He said, don't laugh, sit down. So I sat down. He was not joking. He was upset. So I sat down. I looked at him. I said, can I talk to you? He came to me. I said, can I talk to your CO? So when I talked to him in English, something changed in his tone. He said, just a minute. So he moved all the way about another 100 meters. Like 5 minutes, another guy is about in his 40s, comes in up to me. He said, I'm the CO. I said, are you the CO? He said, yes, I'm the CO. And then when I talked in English, everything changed. He said, do you speak English? I said, yes, I'm so and so and so. He said, get up, sir. First he said, sit down. Now he said, get up, sir. So I stood up. I said, what's happening? He said, well, the facility, there was a building next to my house. It used to be a facility that belongs to the Iraqi army. And somebody has stolen a pickup truck from Mosul railroad station, and somehow a chopper was following them, and they came into this facility. So they were following them. And they went into there, and they arrested about 30 people. Across from my house, there's a big pond, and it used to belong to the governor of Mosul. It has beautiful fish. So everybody was fishing there. And then in the area, there's about 7 or 8 farms, and there's the keepers of the farms, and they have arrested them too. So I said, this is my son. This is my nephew. He said, okay, go. One of the soldiers was on my nephew's bike, so I gave it to him. They go. I said, well, I know this guy, they are the people in the farm next to me. He said, are you sure? Will you vouch for them? I said, yes, I know them. So they let them go, and then I looked at him, I said, come on, there's only about 50 more people here. Some people, I know they were fishing. I can smell the fish in them. I said, well, these are fishermen. They have nothing, I'm sure they have nothing to do with this. So he let them go. As I was walking, I walked, and then there was this Humvee. And the guy, he just pointed his machine gun at me. He said, stop. I looked at him, I said, just don't be afraid of me. I'm unarmed. He was very, very upset. I said, can you just please don't point your gun at me? I just want to talk to you. So you see, the key point is English, the language. The Americans, once they hear somebody speaks their language, they just relax. So he was relaxed, and I said, why are you so nervous? He said, well, if you have been where I have, you would have been nervous too. I said, well, I am sorry, but where have you been? He said, I was in Najaf. Najaf is a small town south of Baghdad. It's majority of Shia, Arab Sunni Shia Muslims. And the minute the American forces entered Iraq, there was a very, very big fight in that area. So this guy, he was in that fight, and he came to Mosul, and he was nervous. I said, okay, listen, you are in Mosul. The first few months, Mosul was very quiet. So because I knew he was upset, I imagined myself in his shoes, and what would he think of me? Maybe he thought I was probably carrying bombs. So I don't blame him. But once I talked to him, I calmed him down, I know what he was coming from. Then we started chatting, and he offered me something that I don't want to say what he offered me.
Oh, you're going to tell me though, right? Okay. That's a good story. Before we open it up to students, I just want to say one thing. And then if you have questions, if you can, it's going to be easier if you come down to the front. There's a mic here and a mic here, and you can meet Basim. You know what I mean? You can get a selfie. All right. So
Dollar a piece.
A dollar fee, yeah. Wait, is that or Iraqi
Get my
dinars?
ticket back to Michigan.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, no, you got to get a Big Mac at some point, right?
I don't eat this food.
Oh, okay, all right. Neither do I. So listen, I do want to not let us off the hook in the following sense, right? I know that I'm not responsible for what's happening in the White House and so on, but I have a responsibility to understand what's going on, to address other people in ways, to help educate other people, to educate myself, to know, to learn, to not be prejudiced and discriminatory, to learn just like taking your words and applying them to my life and moving forward when I meet people and so on. There is a responsibility. And I think that it's not just in the U.S., it's also in Iraq, it's in lots of places where sometimes we live in this bubble, in this shield of ignorance a lot. And we willfully don't want to know and don't want to grow. And I think that that's where everybody has a responsibility in that sense. I do want to say that.
And I've been hearing a lot in conversations that we've all been having about guns and gun regulation, and I hear some of the most honest things that I hear people saying is about the need to protect ourselves. And so Basim's story about having guns pointed at him by a military and him not having a gun to protect him, but having a perspective that protected him,
powerful.
Which was, whoa, I see that this person is afraid. Let me help him to relax. I just think that's a profound thing for us to be thinking about in terms of what is our responsibility. So I just appreciate that story.
Yeah. So we could bring a mic to you if you don't want to come down, but I want to open it up to questions. So who's got a question they'd like to ask Basim? Because I have lots of questions.
Or a comment.
Or a comment. Who would like to say something?
Cool. How you doing? We met a couple years ago.
Yeah, we met. Yeah.
I'm glad to see you in person.
Wait, hang on, though. I do want to say, you recognize him from the screen. He asked the second question last time.
Yeah.
You do understand. Sunday was the very first time that Basim and I ever met. We met in person. So, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I remember Sam was telling me yesterday that you were coming up here, and I started getting a little sad because I know how it feels to lose family members, not from the government, but just from senseless violence in Philly and other places. But I was just thinking about like you became a vessel to teach this story about the social responsibility, not only of people, but also for the government at large. But I'm really curious as to, like, how do you practice self-care in terms of, like, after this happened, like, what changed for you? How do you move forward when you lose your whole family? And what does it mean in terms of, Lori was talking about a social responsibility, but what I see as I'm thinking about it is the privilege of people not having to deal with these things. How do we talk about this big bubble that people are in, but how do we slash the bubble of privilege that people in America don't have to deal with in terms of terrorism and things like that? But first, I want to know, how do you deal with that self-care?
Thank you. I will not lie if you see a facade, but sometimes I just break down and cry. But I have to be strong for my son, for my nephew, for my niece, for the rest of my family, because now I'm the head of the family. So I have to be strong for them. One thing. The second thing, I'm Muslim, but my faith grew stronger after this accident. I always question why I was sleeping here. My wife was sleeping 6 inches away from me. She's dead. I'm alive. Why? I mean, this is a question I cannot answer, but my faith grew stronger after this death of my wife. So I believe that God has a mission for me, and I take strength of this idea of maybe I want to bring. I came here if I get to change the mind of 10 of you, and these 10 will go out and talk to 5 more, then there'll be a ripple effect. I'm happy with that. I want to tell you something. War sucks. I tried to stay out of Iraq during the whole Iranian-Iraqi war, which lasted from 1980 to 1988. I prolonged my stay in the United States just to stay away from that bloody war, which millions lost their lives, and then back to Kuwait, back to 2013. And then the final war in Mosul, after the ISIS invasion of Mosul, which I did not witness because I was out of Mosul. Mosul is 2 parts, the old city, which is, we call it the right side of the city, and the newer city is the left. The right side of the city is about 500 years old. Ancient buildings, ancient mosques, everything is gone. Everything is destroyed. There's no way this can be rebuilt. You cannot rebuild something that was there 500-600 years. So many people lost their lives during the process of the liberation of the old city because it's very small, narrow roadway. I mean, the liberation had to be on foot. What happened was an excessive use of force. Before that, if there was a motorcycle with an ISIS, a drone will pinpoint him and shoot him and kills him immediately. What happened? I don't know what happened, but you have one ISIS fighter on top of a building. That building would be hit with a bomb like 200, 300, 400 kilos and brings down the whole thing. Most of the houses, they had dwellers in them, the family members. Nobody paid any respect to those people. So the excessive use of force, I went into Old City about 2 months ago, because I was afraid, not afraid physically, but I was afraid of what I'm going to see. And it was devastated. So I hope I answered my question.
Can I just quickly, before we go to the next question, Jeff, can you pull the slides up? I just want to go through it really fast. So, this is downtown Mosul. This is sort of a larger shot, yeah. And then go.
This side of the river, this is the old city, and cross, that's the new side. That mosque over there, it has been on for 20 years and never been completed.
Yeah. So go to the next one. So here's the entrance to the university. Yeah.
Entrance to the University of Mosul.
Yep, next one. So just a street scene. This is one of your photos, I think. Here's another. This is modern, right? This is, okay. So here's Mosul.
That's old Mosul now.
There. This is a photo that Basim took. This is just destruction. This is war.
This is what I'm talking about, the old city with all narrow roads. But even there's narrower roads than this. This house, it's at least 300 years old. It's very, very old. Look at it.
Beautiful house.
There. And that's me. This is the street where my father's pharmacy is. And that building over there is completely demolished now. They are removing the debris.
And this is the thing, war, it's real. War sucks. It's not this thing we sit and we have arguments about in our ethics classes. Somebody else, who else has a question? Yeah, go ahead, go down. Hey, Jeff, can you move the microphone over in the center and we'll kind of stay in the... let's stay in, we'll stay in the center. So you can take it off too, bro. You don't have to, we can be a little less formal. Yeah.
Hi, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
My question to you is, what is your take on the American interference with the Middle East right now?
Well, the United States has always interfered in the Middle East. And when they came into Iraq, some say for its oil, some say for controlling of a very important junction in the Middle East. When they came into Iraq, they left in 2016. When they said mission accomplished, mission was not accomplished. They left Iraq in a mess. They dismantled the army. They dismantled every major security force in Iraq. So Iraq was in a chaos for months. The structure of the civil government was dismantled, so we had no government for months. So when they came into Iraq, they came in a different way. They have never invaded a country, but Iraq was invaded. So they have, every country they have some business with, but Iraq, it was different.
All right, just one more question. How does it feel like a person like you who's lost his family? How does it feel like when someone calls you or someone like you a terrorist in this country? How would it feel like for you?
Well, I would be very upset if somebody calls me a terrorist. I'll tell him, well, I was a victim of terrorism. ISIS was a terrorist organization. It came into Iraq. It cost me everything. Then I lost my house. I lost my job because of my injury. We have a building, office building, 4th floor. It was demolished. So I've lost everything. So I've lost more than anybody. So ISIS is not only against Christians, Americans, British, it's against us too.
You know, remember, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago when I asked the class, you were on the screen just there, and I said, does this guy look like a terrorist? Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who'd like to ask a question? And you can get personal. Like, I don't want political questions here. We're not going to like stay up here and talk political. So we want to be. You can stand up. I mean, come and listen to.
Hello.
Hello.
So when you came to the United States, to Kalamazoo for Western Michigan, you said that people embraced you and they had no difficulties with you at all. But, the same, white people in Michigan could have been that same white guy who put the gun on you in Iraq, but he had no idea who you are. You have a degree, So in regards to labeling you and labeling us in Iraq, I'm sure people think of America as the evildoer. What's the best way in terms of fighting those labels to not put everyone in that same perspective and have a different opinion? Because, like you said, it helped you not get shot. What could we do to help?
You cannot generalize.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear so many things on the news, and that's why I say don't listen to one news station, because that news station will tell you what the CEOs of that station. Reach out. I mean, you have the internet now. In my time, I had to read newspapers. You have the internet. You have the whole world in front of you. Just look beyond. Don't take the story from one side. Research. And just like when you think every Arab probably is a terrorist, I will think every American wants to invade my country, take my oil, which is not true. So just go beyond the news. Research for yourself.
And then one more question. In terms of having, kids from the United States understand what war really is, like we glamorize it, with media and like video games and all that. You've seen what it is, and many parts of the world see it, I mean, what other way for us to realize like the tragedies of war really are besides, should we start,
I'm a living example in front of you who's a victim of war. You saw the pictures up there of the old city, the complete destructions, which in my opinion cannot be rebuilt in another 10 years for so many reasons. So this is me, I'm a living human example, and you see the photos, and there's so many examples out there.
Yeah, maybe that's really it. Yeah, thanks, bro. Who else? Come down. Yeah, you can just come down. What's your name?
Brighton. Hi, Basim.
Hello.
You can also like shake. Here, let's do this. It's too awkward. Give him a hug. Yeah.
Before when I was here in '88, this was not permitted. For guys to shake, it was not permitted.
Yeah.
You'd be labeled something else.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you are in England, still you cannot do this in England.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we all have our own sort of beliefs, and when we hear the word Muslim, we think of different images. When you hear the word Christian, what do you imagine? What do you picture? What comes to mind?
Where's my guy? I was just talking to him.
Yeah. That's Nick the Christian is here, by the way, today.
Till 1948, Mosul had the largest Jewish community in Iraq. The second largest was Christians, and then the Muslims. I served in the army in 1988. Then you have basic training for 3 months, and I was sitting like after some exercise, and a guy is next to me. He said, "Well, I will be out of the army next month." I said, "How?" He said, "I'm Jewish." I said, "What? What are you doing here?" He said, "We are the last 5 Jewish people in Iraq. We come from Basra. Basra is all the way south of Iraq." I said, "What are you doing in Iraq?" He said, "My father refuses to leave Iraq." His name was Basim. He was such a polite person. I still did not believe it. He said, "I swear I am Jewish." We grew up in a community. There was no Christian, there was no Muslim, there was no Shia, there was no Sunni. This thing changed later. I was just telling him, I have so many Christian friends. They have left Mosul. I will never see them again. In fact, 3 of my closest friends were Christians. One of them now is in Florida. He called me last night. He said, "I have to see you." I have many in Toronto, Canada. I have so many in LA. I have in Florida. I have some in the Gulf, near Dubai and Bahrain. They're my friends. I have no problem with Christian. Yeah, that's my answer to you.
And me, I'm baptized Christian, so we're good. Thanks, man. Yes.
I think this guy has it.
You can give him a hug also. Okay. You don't have to, though. You can just shake his hand.
Well, last time he said, where was Lori? She said, the guy from Pakistan, he refused to hug you?
Yeah.
I'm Angie.
Hi, Angie.
The first thing I wanted to say was, so I lost my father, and if someone had offered me $2,000 for his life, I cannot imagine just how disrespected, and it kind of is dehumanizing. Mm-hmm. And so, I just wanted to kind of apologize for that, and I cannot imagine what that felt like. And then my question to you is, so you said that when you were in the hospital, you just wanted to leave because you said the place you felt safest was your house. And then that was taken away from you, and kind of like your safe place was then just destroyed. Yeah. So kind of just how do you cope with that? Your safe space where you felt comfortable was taken away from you and victimized and...
Well, my parents' house, we moved in that house in 1975, and I've lived until 1980 when I left to England. And then I returned in 88. We stayed at that house for like 6-7 years. But once you have your own house, it's difficult to move out of it. I mean, it's my parents' house. Now I have no house. I'm renting a house in Erbil, which is north of Mosul. When I go back, I mean, it's my parents' house, but I don't feel it's my house. For some reason, my mom welcomes me because she's the only person now living there. But it's still my house in Erbil, even though I'm living alone. I have to do my own cooking. I have to do my own laundry. But I feel this is my house. So my house is gone. There is no way I can rebuild it. I have no financial way of building it. So I don't know what to do. Thank you for your apology. You don't have to apologize because it's not your doing.
But there's something symbolic about an apology.
Yes, it is. Yeah, at least she's sympathizing with me.
Yeah,
she knows where I'm coming. I know because that's exactly what I said to the girl at the woman lawyer who met me in Erbil. I said, well, "How would you feel when you lose somebody in an airplane accident and then they will offer you 2,000. Is this how much in Iraqi life is worth to you? Why?
Yeah.
This is a human being just like you are a human being. Why?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate it. Hey,
No, just walk. No, that's okay.
okay, somebody else. Yep. There you
This
go.
guy looks like an Arab. Oh, close enough. I used to be called a Pakistani when I was in England. Go ahead.
So my particular question actually relates to the incident when Yahya was biking down and he was stopped by the American soldier. At that particular moment, your fluency in English served as the basis or the fundamental of justice that was served to you and the rest, like 5 or 10 people who were let go because of your fluency in English. So my question, to you and Sam and everyone else is that how does a fluency in one language become the basis of justice when there's so much going on? Like, how can you define something based on just a fluency in language?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I think it's not just the English. I think that the point that Basim was making, which I think is a really good point, it's that human beings, we connect with people when we have something to connect with them. Maybe it's not English, maybe it's food, maybe it's something else. Maybe if Basim had been walking down the street with a T-shirt on that had some Walmart logo on it, I have no idea, some Chicago Cubs, and the person was from Chicago, and then maybe that would be it. So there's so much in the world that at any one moment we can connect with someone on the basis of something. So maybe it wouldn't be English, but
the language is the big barrier. Once you break this barrier, you can come closer to him, because if he did not understand me, he say, "Whoa, stop." But when I say, "Listen, I can talk to you," English it's an international language. But if you go to China, you speak to Chinese, they will be more comfortable with you.
Yeah.
So the first thing to break is the language barrier. Once you break it, you can communicate.
if you can, right? So this is why, like when we travel, Lori and I, when we were just in Russia, it's like, got to memorize these basic Russian words. I have to be able to say hello. I have to be able to say, how are you? There are just certain things that just kind of break it down and allow me to engage at that level. And so I think that's the point. Do you have a response to that, or does that answer your question?
I don't really have a response to that. I understand that fact, like you explained, if I see someone wearing a Steelers shirt or something like that, and I just instantly connect. But, my aim is, there are thousands of innocent people who do not have that advantage.
Yeah,
and,
that's
what
right.
can we
Exactly.
What can we do to sort of, help?
Here it is, and I think this would be the point and the entire point of this class. You don't worry about all of them. We just worry about us. And so Basim has a message for all of us. And the message isn't for us to say, okay, that's fine, I got the message, but what about all those other people? No, the question would really be, did I really get the message? Do I really get it? Do I really understand? What can I do? How can I carry this out into my life? And that's it. So a lot of times what we do is we go on to ask the question that you're asking, but the moment we ask that question, we're not any longer empowered to focus on ourselves. So that would be the key. It's hard enough to, look, just if someone harmed my wife, and if someone just harmed my dog, and I had to find a way to live with that. That's big. That's just big enough. I don't have to worry about solving global inequality and war and so on. Thanks, Bo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Man. Next question.
Hello. I
Hello.
was in the class last semester, and so we got to FaceTime you, and that was just so cool. And I just want to tell you that I feel so honored to be in your presence, and that the story you're sharing is so big, and you're giving all of us part of yourself, and we're better people because of it. And my perspective's changed, and I know you're touching so many lives here. So thank you so much. And then I also wanted to know, how's your time in Penn State been, and have you had fun with Sam and Lori?
I have seen nothing yet of Penn State College.
Did you
All
just
I
get
saw is pond.
Okay. This guy comes here and he works. All he's been doing is working. So.
He said, in my tenure, he said, by the time you leave, you're going to need a vacation, and he's behind his word. So I'm hoping to get out. I'll go by myself. I don't need anybody.
No,
I have my Google Maps, and I would just go out.
No, listen. There are plenty of people in the class who would escort you around.
Oh, thank you
campus.
so much. I can-
Maybe Friday night take you to a frat party.
Okay.
It's been a long time since. Did you ever go to a frat party?
Oh, yes, I have been to frat
okay.
parties.
We won't talk about that. But
No hazing, though.
No, we don't. No, we don't haze anymore. That's all.
Well, we had hazing at that time.
Yeah. Hey, what's your name again? Natalie. Thanks for
Thank you so
coming
much.
up. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming back too. It's so cool. There you go. Yes.
So I don't really have a question. I just kind of have a comment. I just wanted to thank you for coming in, and I think it takes a lot of strength to be able to come and tell your story. And also just like the fact that like you're telling the story, and I think a lot of people really forget that tragedies like this are occurring, and I think it humanizes it a little bit because, you know, like if it's not happening to us, it almost, you know, it doesn't seem like it's happening at all. And so I think with you coming in and telling your story, it really gives us a perspective that we don't really get to, you know, see or even hear. And so I really thank you for coming and taking the time and, you know, building up that courage to be able to come and tell us. I really appreciate it.
I am honored to be here. I'm thankful for everybody who brought me here. And if my talk to you has helped change some ideas, I'm happy with it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Thank you.
What are you studying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, Basim, I think I'm going to get the final word.
Okay, go ahead.
If I could. So, listen, come. So I I put a post on Facebook that I've been teaching for 30 years, and in some ways, I think my 34 years of teaching has been building up to this singular class. And having you here is just an immense honor. I wish you weren't here, but I'm happy that you are. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for bringing me here. I think like 2 years ago, I said, I wish I was sitting in front of you just listening to you. Well, now it's a reality. I'm next to you talking to lovely students. I wish you guys all the luck. This guy rocks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Amazing. Oh my God. Yeah. Amazing. So, just so you know, a couple things. Basim will be back on Thursday, but we still have oh guys. Oh my gosh. We have the room for another hour, so we can have a more intimate conversation if you would like to stay. Anyone who wants to stay, just come down to the front and we can talk. It's fine. Thanks for coming. Thanks
Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you Thursday.
You like it?